I'm Whitney.
I'm Mindy.
And I'm Deb.
We're three best friends who love nerdy things.
Well, some people think we're nerdy, but we think we're pretty awesome.
This is Our Nerdiest Thing.
Hello, fellow nerds, and welcome to Our Nerdiest Thing. Today we are discussing Pucking Around by Emily Rath. This is our part 2 of our discussion. We are talking about chapters 41 through 72. Of course, we are spoiler friendly and spoiler heavy, so listen at your own risk. Deb. That always sounds ominous. I always say it like that. Deb, will you please share our nerdiest cocktail?
I will. Whitney.
I've never done this before.
Well, tonight's nerdiest cocktail is called Seattle Girl, and it's themed after mind-blowing one-night stands.
Ooh.
La la. This drink pairs well with hot hockey defenseman, cohabitation, and praise kinks. Oh, yeah. And it may cause a threesome with your soulmate's best friend. You've got ginger beer, rum, a lime wedge, and then, Mindy, what is this fancy-ass liquor?
It's ginger liqueur.
It's ginger, is Domaine de Canton. Well, it will be in the show notes.
You
folks.
don't have to use Domaine de Canton.
You use ginger liqueur.
Yes.
Okay, so ginger beer, ginger liqueur, rum, and a little lime wedge. Oh, yeah.
Thank you for that. When
we were talking about Wreck the Halls, my husband was like, oh my God, you guys are so loud. He's like, all I heard you saying over and over again was, I'm coming.
What is it? She's coming again? Or no, she's squirting again.
I think Rachel, she's got to with all the bodily fluids going into this girl.
She just needs a shower.
And she gets one or two.
Yeah, she does. That's true. I forgot about that. Mindy, have you spun the wheel of names for our nerdy and dirty recap?
I have.
What
the fuck? This is your first rodeo, isn't it?
It really is. Like, I've never done this. I just joined the podcast.
This is our first episode.
Yeah. Welcome. Thanks for being here. Anyway, let's do the recap.
Whose name?
So the name this week is Deb.
It's Deb.
Wow. Okay.
I've gotten us off to a great professional start. So
I feel about as ready as Ilmari was for the threesome.
Oh, yeah.
He was nervous.
He was nervous.
Yeah,
He's like,
was.
I don't want to be here.
Yeah. And then he's like, I want to be right there. So I'll just be right there. All right.
We need your 1 minute timer.
God, you really have never done this.
Really have no idea what is happening. It feels like a really long time since I've been here doing this, but it's been the same amount of time as you guys.
For the record, you did cook for like 200 people last
true.
week.
That's
so,
true.
yeah. You're probably still tired.
You have Thanksgiving hangover.
I am really tired, you guys. That's true. Okay, I've got
You're so precious.
I know. It's sad. It's hard. It's a hard life. I've got your 60 seconds on the clock. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
And away we go.
Okay, number 1, Caleb gets Rachel ready to move in by bringing out his daddy side and letting him dom her against the kitchen stove. Ooh. Number 2, Jake gets jealous and calls dibs on Rachel the minute she moves in. Number 3, Jake wants to compete with Caleb to see who can get Rachel to break her no PDA in public rule with sex. Caleb says, cool it, Jake. That's not nice. And then number 4, they go to do karaoke, and damn, Caleb can also sing and play guitar, and Rachel's pussy bursts into flames. Number 5, Mars donates to the sea turtles, and Rachel wears a Chanel gown. Number 6, Rachel tells Jake she loves him. Number 7, Rachel and Amari go to Cincinnati, and holy shit, Dr. Holla is Ilmari's dad. Rachel convinces him to have dinner with his dad with the payment of a kiss. Number 8, Ilmari and Rachel get it on. Number 9, Jake and Kay crash at Ilmari's, and the throuple becomes a quadruple. And number 10, side notes, they use the tentacle dildo. The end.
That was almost
That was
exactly
really
60
good.
seconds. That was excellent. Good job.
I don't know how I pulled that out. That's what Jake said.
Well, before we get into this section, before we all get into Rachel, just like the guys did, Mindy, can you please share our nerdiest vocabulary?
Yes, I would love to this week because I'm keeping it short and sweet. And I just really wanted to highlight the best Finnish curse ever. So in these chapters, Ilmari introduces the curse phrase "suksi vitun." In Finnish, that literally means ski into a cunt.
I love that so much.
Which translates to fuck off. And that's really all I have.
Why does ski into a cunt translate into
it's
fuck
hilarious.
off? I'm just picturing like shoo, 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 like so, like pizza, French fry. Pizza,
I guess.
For those of you that have never skied, that's how you speed up and slow down.
I guess because skis are projectile shaped. Not penis shaped. They're not penis shaped, but they could insert.
I don't know.
Like
If you hearing about how
Phallic?
K is like long and thin.
Okay,
so,
listen. If somebody stuck a ski in my cunt, I'd say fuck off.
If someone could get a ski into your cunt, every time the wind blew, we would hear stuff flapping in the wind. Also, I hate the C word. I can't believe we both just said it.
No, I don't like it either. And now it's like the youngins are using it as like a positive adjective.
How so?
I don't.
How do you use it as a positive adjective? You're so cunty.
Yes. Yes.
Ew.
Like I've seen a couple of TikToks where like that's the joke is like describing something that way, but it's obviously something positive. And I'm like, I'm just old,
Do I need to
y'all.
look it up in the
I
Urban
don't get
Dictionary?
it.
How is that positive? Like it's welcoming and warm?
I guess
or
they
like,
just have like decided that it's going to be positive.
You little
I don't
cunt.
know. I mean, I really
It
don't.
doesn't have a sweet vibe to it,
It was
at all.
It was like
Unless you put a vibe on it.
it was a
Tentacle
clip
dildo.
where I saw it was a clip of Jessica Simpson and her sister Ashley Simpson singing "Little Drummer Boy," and
How does cunt come into this?
from like a super long time ago. And you know how Jessica Simpson sings? It's all like like she can't just sing like
Yeah.
straight out. But it was like "Little Drummer Boy," but make it cunty is what it said. And I was like, I don't understand. I
Are
don't
you
understand.
sure they weren't making fun of the Simpsons?
I mean, maybe they
sisters?
were making fun of it, but I still don't get it. You know what I
Yeah, I
mean?
don't-
Like
I
whether
don't
it's positive or not.
I don't love that word either,
Maybe
but I
that
feel
should have
like
been a
I'm
deep
like desensitized to it now.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
I read too much romance.
when for part 3 of this, can you find out if cunt is now a cool word, Mindy?
I will do that research. I'll
Okay.
take one
You'll
for the
take
team.
one for the team.
Yeah, I mean, I
just
see
like
stuff,
Rachel's cunt does.
I see stuff like that, and I'm like, I'm just gonna be old, and I'm gonna be like, that's so cool. Like when I was a kid.
That's neat, guys. Saying the cunt.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like, okay, whatever, y'all. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So let's get into it and talk about our favorite moment from this section.
Sorry, Mindy is currently typing in her notes. Cunt research.
I wanted to do it the fastest
Man.
way possible.
The algorithm is going to be so messed up.
The stuff I've been Googling on my computer prepping for these episodes.
Girl.
I'm like, oh my God.
For real.
Yeah.
That's true. That does go into part of my consideration when I choose deep dives for these books. Like, what do I want to
That's
Google?
what incognito
I was going to say
mode is
good
for.
old
Well, yeah, that's
incognito.
true. So let's talk about our favorite moment. Who wants to go first?
I think you should go first,
Me?
Whitney. You've been so excited about this episode.
Yes. So I have a lot of notes and lots of things to say. Picking a favorite moment was kind of hard for me because I had a lot that made me really uncomfortable in this section.
I thought you might be uncomfortable in
Yeah.
this section.
Yes. And I wrote down in my note, hold on, I wanted to read this quote from my notes where I said, I guess I'm just super straight and monogamous. I just was like, a lot of this is like, okay,
Whitney, not
different
queer
strokes for
at
different
all.
folks, right? But I really like Ilmari, which I've decided I think I like him the best because he's like, I just want to be with her. Like, you guys do whatever you want to do, but I'm gonna be with her. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I I guess that's how I feel too. So I really like him. So I picked my favorite moment being when they kissed and started doing it, like that whole scene leading up to it, where she was like, I don't care about the game, I care about you. And it was like, no one's ever said that to me before. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That sweet,
that sort of tension, swooning.
yeah.
Like,
Well, and that sweet, like, I see you. I don't see the hockey player. I see the man beneath.
Soul.
Yeah, I liked that a lot. I thought that was
that
really
was
sweet.
a really sweet moment.
Well, my favorite moment was actually leading up to that. It's
Ooh.
all the tension
Yeah.
between Ilmari and Rachel when they get back to the hotel. So
Yeah.
she takes her bag and leaves it at the front desk for a reason, because she knows she cannot go up to his room. So when she finds out it's in his room, she literally asks him to go get it. 'Cause she's like, I cannot go up there. So she has to decide whether
Boundaries.
or not, when she gets up to the room to get her bag, she literally has to make the decision as to whether or not she's going to awkwardly hold the door open with her foot and grab her bag and run, or let it shut behind her, because she's like, if this shuts, we're fucking
It's
done.
done. It's done.
Yeah, so I thought the build up was
Very
really
well written. Yeah,
Oh,
I
yeah.
liked that a
because
lot.
I did feel like at the beginning of the book she's just like, well, yeah, I'm gonna fuck these two guys in a broom closet. And with this, it was like,
Still hot.
yeah, I mean it was, but with this, it's like there's been the slow burn.
There's the
angst.
build
Yes,
up.
a lot more build
Yeah.
up. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that a lot too. What about you, Mindy?
Well, my favorite moment also involves Ilmari, but it's when he's inspecting Caleb's piercings.
that was
They're
funny.
really cool.
That made me laugh.
I love how he says he doesn't have to be gay to be fascinated by it. And then he asks to touch it. And like, it makes me realize that Europeans are just so much more enlightened and free than we are.
He was very clinical about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I need to.
He was very
inspect
Ilmari
this.
about it. Like,
Yes.
super like stoic and just like, okay.
Very
this is,
detached. There's no emotion attached.
It was just
to
a great little moment. I did give an honorable mention for when Rachel tells Dr. Hala to go ski into a cunt.
That was funny. That curse makes me laugh too. I like that a lot. What about least favorite moment?
You know, I was sick to my stomach over Dr. Hala.
Yeah.
Who
I know.
is someone that Rachel trusted, and as we know, he used her to get close to Ilmari.
Yeah.
And then at dinner, he doesn't even know that Ilmari's mother died 13 years ago.
Yeah,
that's
that
how
was rough.
out of touch he is. So,
Yeah.
in the words of Rachel Price, he can go fuck himself hard with the sandpaper dildo.
I love that line.
Yeah, that was a rough scene.
What about you, Whit?
I did.
Besides the whole rest of the section.
I did not like the tentacle play when it was described as literally the size of a Pringles can. Like, I know we joke about that in ACOTAR with like Cassian,
Yeah.
but I've never actually thought it was canon that Cassian's dick is the size of a Pringles can.
Oh, I did.
Do you know what I mean?
I'm cool with it.
Yeah.
But, I'll tell you what I really liked about that scene was, I forget which one of them, but one of them knew to ask her what setting she liked.
Caleb.
And I
yeah.
was like, oh, you know.
I appreciate
know,
it. I did
KK.
appreciate that detail actually, but
Yeah.
one of them, I think it was Caleb actually. One of them said, I think it was Caleb saying it to Jake, like, gotta prep her for the tentacle, like just like anal. And I wrote in my notes, like, nothing will turn it off for me faster than
anal.
just like anal. Like, no,
Well, we
thank
were
you.
talking before we turned on the podcast about a book I loved, but they kept calling it Pleated Folds. And I was like, oh,
Cannot.
I'd rather
No,
you say,
thank you.
I would rather you say butthole.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
I really would. Or you
Yeah.
stuck it in her ass or something. You don't need to make it sound fancy. It's not fancy.
Yeah. No, that's weird. Yeah. That
Not
quote.
fashionable.
That just like anal was like, and I'm
I'm
done. Yeah, like with that scene,
Yeah.
just that
I
scene.
get
in
that.
particular.
Well, I
get
was
that.
done, but I still had some reading to do.
Yeah. Me too.
What was your least favorite scene, Mindy?
Mine was, well, actually, there's a lot of things that I really, really love about the sudden death scene in the kitchen. But it really bothered me the first time I read this, when all along she'd been telling both Jake and Caleb that she's theirs. You know, I'm yours. But then she gives this big speech about how she doesn't belong to them. She belongs to herself.
Right.
Which, for the record, is super empowering and awesome, but totally conflicting. Right.
Yes. Yeah.
So when I was reading this time, I thought, I need to figure this out. And I don't know, it frustrated me, and maybe I just needed to wrap my head around the subtleties of polyamory a little bit more. So I just decided to educate myself, and I did a little deep dive into polyamory.
Ooh.
I'm excited to hear this because that really bothered me a lot too.
Yeah,
while I was reading this.
I'm not going to say for me, it wouldn't work, but I definitely understand it more.
Do either of you know anyone like IRL in a polyamorous relationship?
I
I know
can't-
people in open relationships.
I
but
just know
Yeah, I
the sister
don't-
wives on TLC. Like literally, that's my own.
That's actually
Like, yeah,
not
that's-
polyamory. That's it's different. Polyamory is different from what's the one? Oh man.
Okay, well, hold on. Go into your deep dive and tell us.
I don't know if it's in there.
I didn't interrupt this time. You did. For the record,
Polygamy,
that was Whitney.
that's the word I was
That
looking
was
for. Polygamy
Whitney.
is when they're
Polygamy.
married. Polyamory is it encompasses that, but like polygamy, they have to be married. Polyamory is just like a more umbrella term.
Okay.
So, there's that.
All right, tell
Educate
us all
me.
about it.
So, polyamory actually comes from the Greek word or roots poly, which means many, and amor, meaning love, which makes complete sense. So the word,
Many amor.
yeah, the word literally means many or multiple loves, but it's not really a free for all. The relationship is supposed to be based on mutual consent, and clear boundaries have to be set. So there's honesty, transparency, trust, all that.
I don't feel like they've done that yet.
I'm not sure they have
Yeah.
yet. They do, I think, sort of get there. Anyway, so obviously, though, communication is key for a polyamorous relationship to work, and I think that's where the sudden death scene comes in. They're like, "Look, we got to lay it out on the table, leave it all out on the ice, or whatever."
Yeah.
So there are several different types of polyamory. The first one is the V, where one person dates two people, but those two people are not involved with each other. So if you think of a V, the person that's with both is at the point, and then the other two are at the top.
So that would be Ilmari and Jake would be
Right.
Like if they
so
were
if
just
Caleb
those,
wasn't in the
yeah.
picture, it would be Ilmari, Jake, and then Rachel.
Right. That would be a V.
Then there's the triad, and that's three people involved in a sexual relationship. This would be Rachel, Jake, and Caleb before Ilmari was in the picture. So they're all three involved somehow. They don't necessarily have to be involved with each other. Like at that point, Jake and Caleb aren't involved with each other, I don't think. But anyway, so that's, yes. So they're all
I don't know.
involved.
He has a lot of fun up against Caleb.
Well, that is true.
So-
They aren't like honest at that point, though. So they're not being clear communicators. The next one would be the quad, which is four people involved sexually in a relationship, and it's usually two couples that become involved with each other. So the way that it's portrayed in Pucking Around is a little different than what it usually is, but it would be, I mean, they all participate in sex together in the same room. Then it gets a little more complicated.
Sure, three penises and one vagina isn't complicated at
I was
all.
going to say, I think it's already complicated.
Well, I mean, when they're all kind of part of it, it's one thing, but this is like when some are not part and some are. There's a hierarchical polyamory, and there's a primary focus on one relationship in that, and any other relationship would be secondary. So this is what most people would think of when they're talking about an open marriage. So the marriage is the primary relationship because they live together, they share finances, they do all that stuff together, but they see other people outside their marriage.
Okay.
So hierarchical, the primary relationship is at the top, and
So
everything
that's
else
an
is second.
open relationship,
Right.
Essentially,
It's like an open marriage.
Okay.
Yeah. The next one is the non-hierarchical polyamory, and that means that no single relationship is prioritized. So the whole relationship is needs fulfillment based, where everyone is concerned with what the whole setup gives them. So everyone has an equal say in the relationship and make decisions together. And I feel like this is what our Pucking Around relationship is. Then there is, I love this one, kitchen table polyamory.
That sounds fun.
But it not necessarily is. So it this actually could also apply to Rachel and her guys, though, because Ilmari isn't sexually involved with the other two guys yet. Basically, this is where not all partners are necessarily romantically involved, but they do all hang out together, like share meals together. Thus, it's called
At the
kitchen
kitchen
table.
table.
So that
Gotcha.
would be sister wives, kind of, except for they're married.
Except for they're married.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the wives don't sleep together, right?
Oh, that's,
No,
well,
definitely not.
absolutely
Although now I would say it's hierarchical because he has a favorite wife and ignores the other ones.
Well, doesn't he only have one left?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's actually
So
heterosexual.
he is monogamous now.
Yeah.
Not really. I hope those women's heart weren't broken.
I think they were. But I think they're over it now.
Okay, good deal.
Yeah. They're better off.
He sucks.
Yeah. The next one is called parallel polyamory, and it's the opposite of kitchen table polyamory. It's where there's one pair and one or both of them have relationships with another person, and they are each aware of the other person, but are not friendly with them, and they don't interact. So it'd be like if Rachel and Jake were together, and she was also with Caleb and Ilmari, but Jake didn't want to know about them and didn't want to interact with them at all.
So it's like having an open relationship, but pretending like you don't?
Kind of,
guess,
yeah.
maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Then there's solo polyamory, which is silly, I think, because it's basically someone who's involved with several partners but does not have a primary relationship. So like
dating?
she's dating, she's on Tinder,
So
or
dating.
he's on Tinder, whatever. Yeah,
I want to see on Tinder someone being like, I'm a
I'm a solo polyamorous. Yeah, they have no
I'm sure
strings
they
attached relations where their needs are met but aren't interested in a serious relationship. So I put sounds like dating to me.
Right.
And then
Non-exclusive.
Finally, yeah.
Yeah.
Finally, there's the monopoly relationship where one partner is monogamous to the other partner, but one partner has other partners.
So one person's an open relationship
And the other one
person
is not.
Well,
Yes.
that's Ilmari and Rachel
Yeah.
at this point.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
So the difference between that and cheating or adultery is that it's happening with mutual consent.
yeah, everybody knows
Everybody
about
is
it.
yeah, it's
And
not
and is
it's
on
not
board with it.
on the down low. Yeah.
Right. You're not
So-
lying to your partner about your other partners.
So there are some common rules and boundaries that most people in a polyamorous relationship would, go over and talk about. So the first one is consent. Like everybody has to be consensual in this. Otherwise, obviously, it's cheating or it's
Right.
not good.
Right.
The second is clear and specific communication, which really, honestly, that's like for any relationship.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like everybody can benefit from clear and specific communication. 3, always use protection, which makes sense. Establish very clear boundaries to prevent jealousy, which is, I think, where I get hung up. I just have such a jealous streak. I just don't know that I could be... I just don't think I can not be jealous.
I'm
like,
too competitive. I'd
Yeah.
be like, what do you,
Yeah.
are they better than me? Because I'll show you.
But I know there's people out there that's not an issue for them, right? So
Yeah. There's no way.
I think anxiety it goes hand in hand with that.
Yeah, maybe.
You think so?
Maybe. So the next common rule is pay attention to your partner. And really, this should go without saying. Like, don't neglect your primary partner or any of them for another one.
These are rules
Sister
for every
wives.
It really is
Yeah.
definitely something that everybody could benefit from. The next one, this maybe is a little different. Keep distance from the other person's partner if it's not a mutual partner, because then it'll be easier than to not judge or make comments about the other person. Like you shouldn't be talking about that person and giving the other one fodder for comebacks or whatever to wedge in between you. Does that make sense? And then finally, and this is another one that I would definitely struggle with, is don't take things personally.
Oh, I don't know how to do that. That's
I
not,
don't either.
That's not an option for Whitney.
And then finally, there's some common misconceptions, I think. And this was sort of where I was at, where I was like, I just need to educate myself about this. A lot of people, I guess, think that polyamory is a disorder or an illness. And I mean, I guess I can see that in some religious, like cultish,
A disorder
environments.
or illness.
Yeah.
Goodness.
But just because it's something that you don't engage in doesn't make it a sickness, obviously. Some people are just capable of loving multiple people at the same time. And I think once I finally wrapped my head around that, just because I don't feel like I can do that, and I know that it's because of those couple reasons where the jealousy and that kind of stuff come in. But there are other people that's not a problem for them. So if you're capable of loving multiple people at the same time, it doesn't make you like you have a disease. That's so weird.
Sick.
Yeah. Number 2, it's not cheating. A lot of people say, oh, you're cheating on each other. Well, the difference between polyamory and cheating is consent, which I've already talked about. And then, honestly, though, polyamory doesn't mean it's a free-for-all and anything goes, or that you can never cheat. Because if you don't follow the rules and boundaries set by all partners, that would be considered cheating.
Right.
So if the rules and boundaries were like, you can only have 2 partners and I can only have 2 partners, and then you go and get a third partner, that's cheating. Because that's not part of the consensual
Right.
contract or whatever. And then some people may think that partners are polyamorous because they just can't commit. But in actuality, they're able to commit to multiple partners.
That's a lot of work.
That's
It
what
is.
That's
It
what I
is.
was just thinking too. Because
Yeah.
I've already mentioned Sister Wives. Watched it for like 10 years. But that's my thing with even the Sister Wives situation, where it's like, that is so much work.
I like to be alone too much than to have to worry about like another person besides
Yeah.
my husband's needs and wants.
Right.
I'd be like, oh my God, you guys are so clingy.
Yeah.
I think if I was going, and I'm not, but if I was going to engage in polyamory, I would have to be in the hierarchical polyamory. I'd have to be the extra person. Like, you have your own relationship. I'll be over here reading until you want to have sex.
I would have to be the Rachel, where it's all about me and everybody will do what I want them to do when I want them to do
everyone
it.
pleases Deborah.
Yeah, right. I mean, I would have to be the Rachel in the.
I'm like,
in the
it's
situation.
2:00. It's orgasm time. Who's available?
So
Where are my sexual butlers? Ring a little bell.
ring your bell.
It's like penis shaped. Ding, 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 ding.
A tentacle bell. A tentacle dildo bell.
No, you buzz it. You buzz it on one for the first one, two for the other. They know their buzz.
Yeah, everyone has a setting.
Yes. But anyway, to wrap it all up, I can now kind of see how each person is their own autonomous self, but they can still belong to someone romantically. Mm-hmm. Like, I definitely like made that leap to where I see where she's coming from, that when she says, I'm yours, but I don't belong to you.
Right.
Right? Like,
right.
you don't have, you're not the person. Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I was just thinking too.
Yeah. So I think that's the difference for Rachel when she's talking here.
Yeah.
And so I was very enlightened by that. I mean, a lot of it's common sense, especially like
should be
for
Right.
most relationships. But the different types of polyamory, like, that makes sense to me. Like, it's not cut and dried. It's not black and white.
Yeah.
And really nothing is.
Right.
So-
I did really enjoy that because I didn't know there were so many types. And
I know, I didn't either.
The whole, like, it's not cheating if it's consent. I really like that you said that. And yeah, I mean, it makes more sense when you're
I think
educated
people
about it.
automatically think it's like this big free for all, like sex for everyone,
for sure. Or
and-
like, I get to do whatever I want to
Yeah.
do when
And
I feel
it's-
like doing it.
and it's not
Yeah.
like that at all. And like you all said, I think it's more work. So it
It has to
honestly
be.
takes more from you to do something
Right.
like this than it does, to just have to worry about
Yeah.
one other person.
You guys are my polyamorous reader friends.
I kind of like
I
that.
stay the night with you and read sometimes.
Would that make us kitchen table?
Yeah,
people?
yeah.
Kitchen table people. Was it?
Because
Kitchen table polyamory.
sometimes
Yeah.
I'll read alone with Whitney. Sometimes, sometimes I read alone.
And I
with,
get jealous.
Sometimes I read alone with our friend Holly and stay the night over there. But we all know about each other and we're cool with it.
Holly does have that great library, if you know what I mean.
Our polyamorous book club, no sex.
Oh my gosh.
Well, thank
So
you.
if you're in a
I learned a
polyamorous
lot.
relationship, for the record, I'm not making fun of it. I'm
Yeah.
just being silly.
We're making fun of ourselves.
I know, right?
But no, I really did learn a lot.
Yeah,
Thank
I did
you.
too.
Thank you.
Very
Megan.
enlightening.
So that brings us to our biggest revelation. What was your all's biggest revelation for this section?
Okay.
Uh-oh.
There's that part where Tess is there and she's going to go into the kitchen and there's like a 3-way hand job happening, right? Okay. How do these people give each other orgasms while they're standing up? My deep dive was going to be trying to find some research that suggested that having the big O would be more difficult while standing, but I guess I'm like the minority.
No.
Yeah, I think there has to be
No,
a height compatibility there.
Well, there
Oh,
does,
well,
but they
yeah.
were doing handsy stuff. I'm talking
that's
about
true.
just having an orgasm, not having sex. But
Fancy stuff.
I've never been able to do that. I'm worried that I would like fall mid climax. And then I'm like on the floor. I like broke my ankle or something because I was like standing up. But yeah, so that really baffled me. I thought it was like a thing that people couldn't do that, but it's really common that people can.
Well, I think we were talking before this that I learned some new terminology since I've been reading Emily's books. And so there's a scene and I'm not going to give away too much, but in her latest release, which is Pucking Ever After, Volume 2, which is her little Happily Ever After novella. And there is something called frotting. Do you all know what that is?
No.
Frotting?
Frotting.
Okay.
It's when you, and it happens in this book, I don't know if it's in this section or the next one, where you grab both the penises in your hand, your own and someone else's, and then stroke it to orgasm.
I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah.
So I did find 2 articles, one from Women's Health and one from Prevention, that give good tips on how to get down while standing up. I'll link them in the show notes. But apparently, a lot of people do use like standing sex is foreplay instead of like to get to climax. But they were doing hand stuff, and I still didn't get it because I'm like,
No.
what happens if one of them like starts moving a lot?
Well,
or
to
like,
be fair, like you and Brian are like the complete opposite in height. Like Darren and I struggle, and we're closer in height than you and Brian are.
Brian would have to like bend fully over at the waist.
Brian would have knee issues.
He needs a special stool.
No, I need a
she
special
needs
You
a
need
stool.
a special.
Right.
Well, I was
But then
thinking-
my arms are so short I wouldn't be able to reach him. I'm just a teeny tiny person.
Good things come in small
that was
packages.
my biggest revelation, that 3 people could stand together and all have an orgasm standing up. That was very unbelievable to me.
I was going to say, I thought that was just like a suspend your disbelief. So I'm right there with you, Deb.
Yeah.
Mindy, what was your biggest revelation?
Mine was when Kay and Jake finally got together. It's like the Atlas Gabe pairing we never got with the bonds that tie, right?
Jay Bree, we need it.
I know.
I need it.
Like a Merry Christmas bonus chapter or something?
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah, I just love that. I mean, I knew it was coming because I've read this before, but when I first read it, I was like, oh yeah, like I'm on board with this.
Yeah.
I mean, and then of course there's the other one where Dr. Hala is actually Mars's biological father. That's kind of the obvious one, right?
Yeah. That was the one I picked.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it makes sense. I'm glad somebody picked it.
Yeah. I was going to ask you about Jake and Caleb because I didn't read is it a novella?
The prequel?
Yeah. I didn't read that, but is there anything in there about Jake and Caleb and their like friendship at all? Or is that really just focused on Jake and
It's really
Rachel?
just focused on that one night that they're together. I can't remember if he might mention in passing his best friend. I
but
don't,
not really,
but
like,
not
the
really
focus.
anything that's like, But
'Cause-
they've been friends forever.
For a long time.
Yeah.
Because I felt like sometimes in this section in particular with their friendship and relationship, whatever, sometimes I felt like I was missing a piece of that build up for Jake
Right.
and Caleb. You know what I mean? Like, I get that the description of like they've been friends for a long time and like they used to live together. Like, I get that all that is there, but I still at times felt like something happened that I missed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's just the way I personally felt about it.
Got the impression that, I mean, Jake is such a like puppy dog. Like he's just like whatever, you know.
He
You
is,
just
yeah.
make me happy, so you know. Hey,
No, very much
But
so.
like Caleb pines after him,
Yeah.
for a long, long time. And you actually do in Punking Wild, the next book in this. You get to see their wedding,
Oh.
and which sorry, spoiler alert.
Yeah, Mindy, did you see?
I said it at the beginning.
Did you see
Listen
me
at your
glaring
own
at
risk.
you when you said that?
So sorry. You get a little more insight into that.
Yeah.
In that book. I would actually love, hey, Emily Rath, love a scene from Jake and Caleb's past.
Yeah.
Like when they're playing together in college or whatever.
Maybe where they're a little queer.
Well, where maybe Caleb's like exploring that, like when he's just figuring that out and he's just figuring out his feelings for Jake and he's realizing that there's more there, but it's really
Well, 'cause
difficult for him because Jake is not there.
They say maybe in the first section they make a real throwaway. One of them says a throwaway line about like we haven't shared a girl since college or
Yeah.
something like that.
Right.
So that foundation is there. But I just wondered if there was something in that prequel novella that like because since I didn't read that I missed out on.
The
you
prequel
know?
novella is a lot of sex
I
between
gathered.
Jake and Rachel.
This book is a lot of sex.
fucking
Between
hot.
Rachel and everybody.
Emily's going to be on the podcast
I
next
know.
episode, so you need to ask her if she plans on writing that.
Yes,
Put it in
I
your
definitely
notes next to whatever research. research.
Well, yeah, so my biggest revelation was about Dr. Hala being Ilmari's actual biological father. I thought that was a good twist and reveal. I did not see that coming at all.
I didn't either.
It never, and obviously she had been hinting at it because she talked a lot about how he was like a European doctor and he had this thick accent and all this stuff, and I just like did not pick up on that
I do
at
love
all.
too where he's like, you didn't think about I'm from Europe. Like, I'm from Finland, and she's like, I don't know where you're from.
I felt the same way.
It's like though when you're like, I'm from Kentucky, and someone's like, do you know so and so? Like, no.
Do you know Colonel Sanders? No, I don't. But yeah, that whole storyline with Dr. Hala with the hip injury, guys, I went like super nerdy with my deep dive this week. So last week I mentioned that one of my biggest revelations was realizing what the floor humping was during hockey warm-ups. Like it's actually a very legitimate warm-up exercise.
We just thought you guys were horny.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it looks silly, but I didn't know until last week what that was actually for. So I kind of kept that theme going, I guess, as I was reading this section. So Rachel and Ilmari, but especially Rachel, doing all this work to keep Ilmari healthy, they focused a lot on his hips. And I personally have had issues with my hips as a childbearing woman. So I went.
They lie?
They don't lie. These hips do not lie. I went full out nerd and did a deep dive on hip health. So I wanted to kind of focus on women because that's what I am. That's what most of our listeners are, even though Ilmari obviously is not. So I focused on basically overall wellness and how healthy hips can support that. So everybody get your learning hats on because away we go.
I can't wait to learn about my hips.
So first of all, your hips are actually a joint. I thought they were literally bones. I never thought about the fact that they were a joint. Exactly.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
I guess I thought it was like the whole package, like the joints
pelvis?
and the bones and the that part of the pelvis, the side of your pelvis.
It is part of your pelvis, but I never thought of it like that. So the hips are a ball and socket joint that connects your pelvis to your thigh bone. So, you know, your leg bone's connected to your hip bone. I thought hip bone was like an actual thing. Yeah. So that was the first thing I learned.
They led us astray.
They really
I know.
did.
They were lying to us.
Whoever
false
wrote
advertising.
that, fuck you.
Right. So I thought that was like the hip was a part of your skeleton, like the actual bone, but it's just the joint. But it is the second largest joint in your body after your knee. Huh. It's also one of the most weight-bearing joints in your body. So that means it is constantly under stress as it supports your body weight. So keeping your hip joint strong and healthy is extremely important to the rest of your body.
That makes sense.
Right. I had never thought about any of this like this before, even though I have been to physical therapy for pelvic issues, which include my hips. So I felt stupid. So the hip joint also works to balance and support your upper body, aka your torso and your head. So that's kind of important as well. The hip joint is what allows you to move your legs, your lower bodies, your thighs. So having issues with your hips means that you're going to have issues with your lower body, which means walking and standing and running.
When you think about it, they're right in the middle of your body.
Yes. Like it's connected to everything in a way, and it stabilizes everything. So you're going to have, if you have issues with your hips, you're going to have issues with like your entire body, basically. So doing anything in life is going to be more difficult or I guess more painful if you have issues with your hips. So since the hip is also connected to your pelvis, hip problems can mean problems with your pelvis, which is what I have firsthand experience with. Thank you to my daughter. Big props to my pelvic floor physical therapist, Regina. Shout out to Regina.
She was my fibro physical therapist.
Woo!
Oh, can I tell my Regina story?
Oh, please do.
Okay, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but this is one of the most embarrassing moments of my life. You know what I'm about to say?
Yes, I do.
This is one of my favorite stories.
I have fibromyalgia, which really messes with the pain centers in your body, and I was having a lot of trouble with my lower back and my legs. So Regina was helping me strengthen my core, and she was helping me get my back to not be so tight, and also like work on my gait, right?
She was working those hips.
She was working those hips. So I do like all these exercises with her one day. I'm like all sweaty. She has me go in and lay on the table because she's going to pop my back, right? So the way that a physical therapist that's not a chiropractor pops your back is the way she did it is she had me roll on my side. She wrapped her arms around me like a bear hug. I mean, her boobs were all up in my face. And I mean, not like anything gross, but I was like, oh, there's your breast, Regina. But she's like wrapped around me in like a bear hug. And then what she does is she rolls you over quickly and presses really hard.
Yeah.
So she rolls me over and I'm like talking. And she presses really hard. And it's like, it was like a 2-minute fart. I have never farted that loud in my entire life. Of course, the door is open to the exam
Of course.
room. She busts
Everybody
up
hears your
laughing. She busts up laughing. I'm laughing. I've never been able to look at this woman in the eye again. I was mortified. She's like, oh, honey, it happens all the time. And I'm like, not like that. It was awful. But, I mean, my stomach and my back felt
I was going to
better.
say, I think you felt very relaxed.
But you felt great.
I didn't have gas for like 2 weeks after
I
that. Sorry. So
Shout out to Regina.
shout out to Regina. It's solving problems for all of us.
Oh my gosh. I love Regina. Okay. So one of the most stereotypical, I wrote, quote, old person medical procedures is hip replacement, right? So this doesn't really have anything to do with your age, but it's about the health of your hips. And when you think about how much work your hips do for your body every single day, being, like you said, Mindy, being in the middle of your body and connected to these major parts of your body, it makes a lot more sense to me now that so many people need medical intervention with their hips, especially as they get older, right? The older you are, the more wear and tear the hips are going to have.
Well, now that I know it's a joint, it makes more sense.
Exactly.
definitely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like just like your knees, right? Knee replacements are a big thing too. So they get so much wear and tear that if you're not super intentional about taking care of your hips, like Ilmari had to be, they will absolutely wear out. So here are some quick tips about keeping those hips healthy. So the first one I found, personally offensive, but it's just the truth, unfortunately. Being at a healthy weight for your height and your body build is very important, which I know, especially for women, it's like, hey, my arm fell off. And they're like, did you try losing weight? Like, it's always the first answer.
Yeah.
But for your hips, it makes obviously it makes a lot
But
of
think
sense,
about
right?
where women gain weight.
Exactly.
Yeah. And
Around
their
our
hips and
midsection.
tummy, yeah.
Exactly. But the hips basically carry the weight of your entire body, right? Yeah. So if you are not at a healthy weight and have too much weight for your build, for your height, whatever healthy weight is for your body, the more strain your hip joints are going to have. So we already established extra strain on your hips can affect your pelvis, your torso, aka your lower back, and your lower body. So if you're worried about your hips or you're experiencing pain in any of those areas in your body, being at a healthy weight is one good place to start to take some literal pressure off of your hips. Another way to take that pressure off your hip joints is to decrease the high impact activity in your life where possible. So if you're concerned about your hips,
I have zero high impact.
I know, right? Well, and some people don't, which I'm actually going to talk about that in a second. But, if you're doing something like running 5 miles and are having lower back pain, like maybe walk instead, right? And it's hard for people to make that change. But, if you're doing box jumps or squat jumps, maybe just do standing squats and leave your feet on the ground. Like, make those small changes if you're worried about it. If you're not worried about it, then don't worry about it. Continue to not worry about it, I guess. So please speak to your medical professional about what activities you might want to switch out if that's something that you are worried about at all. So for the rest of us who do not have high impact activities, right? Most of us sit down too much. So incorporating a stretching routine, especially before you are active, is very helpful for your hips. So when you keep yourself flexible and keep those joints flexible, you reduce your risk of injury and you're less likely to hurt yourself in random day-to-day activities when your muscles are not super tight. So when you sit a lot, your hips are going to be super tight because you're not using them, right? You're not flexing them. They're staying in that same position for a lot of your day.
And for the record, like yoga is such a low impact, exercise that it's really, really like pigeon pose is my favorite pose.
Yeah, I could do it for 3 hours on each side.
I'd watch a 45-minute show doing that.
I know, right? I've actually done that.
I thought you were about to say I'd watch a 45-year-old man do that.
Nah.
We're actually going to have a link in our show notes to an article from Women's Health, which is it has a lot of really great stretches for your hips. Some of them are standing, some of them are kneeling, and some of them are sitting. So whatever your body needs, if you can do all three, or if, you can only do standing, there's some really good options. And they all have videos to show you how to do each stretch properly.
Women's
So,
Health is
super
bringing
helpful.
all the show notes.
I know.
Set standing up and how to increase your hip flexibility.
Exactly.
So
right?
you could have sex and increase your hip flexibility while you're standing up.
Just spread those legs super wide.
Hold on, I got to stretch for a minute, honey.
And then last but not least, strengthening the muscles around your hip joints, because again, the hips are a joint. They are not muscle. They are not bone. Well, I guess they are kind of bone themselves, but they're a joint. Strengthening the muscles around them is extremely helpful. So that would be focusing on your core, which includes your glutes and your lower back.
And your pelvic floor.
And your pelvic floor. Exactly. I've had a lot of lower back pain since having my daughter, and she's almost 5. And it stems from, it's not my back that is the problem. That's just where the pain is, right?
Yeah.
It's my core, it's my pelvic floor muscles, and my hips. My hips are like out of alignment because of the way that she was sitting in my body.
This
so
is why
again,
kids
thank you.
are cute, because if they weren't cute, we wouldn't have any more.
Because they definitely fuck with our bodies.
Yes,
Oh
they
my
do.
gosh, yeah. So your core muscles work just as hard as your hips to stabilize your body. So you have to be intentional about them and see a doctor or a physical therapist like Ilmari seeing Rachel when you need to. That can be amazingly beneficial. So I know it's not like the sexiest deep dive, but a lot of women have back
It's
problems and have
important.
pelvic floor
Yeah.
problems and experience back pain, and your
And
hips
it's
are
not-
important.
And it's not just older, people either,
Yeah.
because I actually had that same issue when I was pregnant with my middle child.
I'm not that old.
Right? Like, we're not old. So, when I was pregnant with Molly, I had an uneven gait because my hips were messed up. And so I did physical therapy, and I remember I had to press one foot into the wall, but not the other one to even that out. And it does, it makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
So no
I'm
matter what
almost
age you are, I think it's super important to, as a woman,
For sure.
to keep that area of your body healthy.
Yeah, especially if you have had kids. If you
yes.
if you have been pregnant, it just changes everything. So go see a physical therapist and talk to your doctor.
And it'll make your pregnancy better, honestly, if you deal with it beforehand.
It'll make your hoo-ha better too.
Yeah.
So anyway, hips.
Can we talk a little bit, speaking of hips, about just how dangerous hockey is, though? Because the
For
whole
sure.
thing with Rachel is she's a physical therapist, right?
Yeah.
And so she is there for when the guys get injured and to watch them during the game and make sure they're not overextending like she's worried with Ilmari. So
Yeah.
I did look up real quick some hockey facts. Let's talk
Fast
hockey
facts.
facts. So as we see with Ilmari, the hip labrum tear, which I keep wanting to say labia. It's a hip. That's last week's episode where I talked about genital piercings, my friends. The hip labrum tear is the most common hip injury in hockey, actually. And the most dangerous hockey position is goalie. And it's because they have pucks in the excess of 100 miles per hour
Wow.
rushing towards their body.
That's crazy.
So even though football has the highest injury rate in sports, hockey players actually hit each other almost 20% harder than football
Oh,
players
wow.
do
I believe
during the
it.
game. We talked about the hip tear, but the clavicle is the most commonly broken bone in hockey, either from impact from other players, falling on the ice, or hitting the sideboards on the rink like you see
Yeah.
them do
I've
all
seen
the time.
some really gnarly,
Yikes.
Yeah.
guys hitting the boards and crumpling, basically.
Yeah, like
it's
their
bad.
face is all bloody and shit. So, according to ESPN, the only sport more difficult than hockey is boxing. And it has to
Really?
do with the amount of stamina and
Yeah, that makes
balance
sense.
and
I could
strength
see
it
that.
takes to play the sport. Out of all sports, ice hockey causes the most concussions, accounting for up to 30% of all hockey injuries.
Which is interesting. You would think that football
I
would
was just
top
thinking that, yeah.
Right.
But yeah,
Yeah.
I see it. I mean, I can see it.
And-
you fall on the ice, you're hitting your head hard,
Right.
right?
And see, I keep thinking that the helmets are going to help them, forgetting that football players have helmets too. Still get concussions.
But here's the
also.
thing: it was like in the 40s or 60s. I can't remember which, when they first started wearing helmets. For a long time, they didn't wear helmets
That's
in
so
ice
crazy
hockey.
to
Isn't that
me.
insane?
That's nuts.
Yeah,
Including the
that's crazy.
goalies. Like the goalies didn't start wearing masks until really late.
That's insane.
Been fairly recently.
So speaking about these guys' hot bodies, due to year-round training and conditioning, NHL players are bigger, stronger, and faster than any time previous in history, which I'm cool with.
Me too.
Congratulations.
Good job, guys. Good job. The NHL is part of what is called the Big Four, with the NBA, MLB, and NFL, all known for being the wealthiest professional club competitions, which I never thought about it that way. It is a club, if you really think about it.
Yeah.
Right.
It's definitely like the redheaded stepchild, though.
Yeah. So the most painful bone one can break in the human body is said to be the femur, which is your thigh bone. And actually, Chicago Blackhawks prospect Sam Savoie just broke his in October.
Ooh,
so they think he's going to have a full recovery, but he has a really long road in front of him.
Yeah.
There is something called chronic traumatic encephalopathy, or CTE, which I'm going to call it moving forward.
Let's say that.
And this is a progressive degenerative disease affecting people who have suffered repeated concussions and traumatic brain injuries. And in one study done by Boston University, half of the hockey participants had CTE detected.
Wow.
That makes so much sense, because not only you have like pucks flying at your head, which those things are like massive, like dense, right? But you've got people high sticking you. You've got people checking you into the boards. I mean,
Putting it in the 5-hole.
Putting it in the 5-hole. But I mean, even just like you're skating around on like knives and you fall and hit the ice. It's not the same as hitting dirt.
No, it's not. Yeah.
Right.
That's interesting though, because I've heard about CTE a lot with football, and I don't.
And boxing.
And boxing, but I don't hear people talk about it with hockey.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
So, and finally, believe it or not, hockey is number 4 when ranked worldwide in terms of the most popular sports. And the number 2 sport is going to make you giggle. It's cricket.
Oh,
Look, that's hardcore. Have you seen any like bloopers from cricket?
I'm thinking of like them with the little that's the mallet and the pool balls, right?
But
they do use that.
Okay.
You might also be thinking of croquet.
I'm thinking of
Yes,
croquet.
you're thinking of croquet. Yeah.
Okay, what's cricket?
So cricket, they have these big paddles, and I still don't understand
It's like
it,
rugby
to be
with paddles, right?
Well, it's like croquet on steroids.
Or baseball and croquet on steroids.
Yeah.
Like you have like a pitcher, sort of. I don't know. They've got these big paddles and these balls. I mean, I
They
still
bend
don't.
over, whack really hard.
So it's so funny though, because if you've been listening to us for a long time, we're in the U.S. and cricket is not a prevalent sport here. But you think about really how small the USA is compared to the rest of the world, right? And I think the rest of the world plays this sport. But if you told me you were going to a cricket match, first of all, I would have thought you were saying croquet, and I would have made fun of you. So
I always think of Heathers when I think of croquet.
croquet, right? I thought that was cricket.
What was your all's favorite spicy scene?
Go ahead, Deb.
Could you guys narrow it down even?
Okay,
I know, right?
Mine is going to be different than you guys think. Every single fucking time that one of these hockey players takes his shirt off one-handed, my feminism leaves my body. Okay, it just like fucking flies away.
Right.
It flies right out the window. These boys they are so excited. They can't even wait to use 2 hands to get their clothes off. They can only use one. Plus, it takes some serious flexibility and dexterity to do it smoothly and swiftly. I
That's
tested
true.
my theory and almost popped my shoulder out of socket.
You're like,
I know, my arm got stuck in it. It was like crack, 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 and I was like, "Oh, I'm not a smooth hockey
What
player."
I want to know is
Yeah.
if you made Brian try it.
No, I didn't. But he's really flexible. He probably
I was
could.
going to say he probably could pull
But
that off.
I mean, if you think about how much flexibility and strength it takes to pull
Yeah,
your
that's
shirt
true.
over your
Yeah.
head one-handed.
And not get stuck.
Oh my god, it's
well, and
so
then it's like
fucking
unwrapping
hot.
a present, because
Yeah,
then it's
it
like
is.
abs for days.
Mindy, what was your favorite spicy scene?
Besides that,
Mine actually was the hotel room after the Pittsburgh loss, and when they both take her at once. And I know we've talked.
Caleb and Jake.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Caleb, Jake, and Rachel in the hotel room after they lost, and they come and bring Jake like cookies and chocolate
Yeah.
milk.
oh yeah,
and,
that was really sweet.
yeah, which was the sweet part of it. But then then they do the two in one.
The deed.
The deed.
That's
when they first bring out the tentacle, too.
But we were discussing this at book club. I think after I read it, I understood it more, Whitney, because I know you were asking like how it could all fit.
Yeah.
How logistically it would work.
I think I understand how it would work logistically. I just don't think my hoo-ha stretches that much. I did not have vaginal births, so I don't know if mine can go that
at times
stretched.
And that scene in particular is one of these times. At times I felt like, are we trying to give the impression that Caleb is not
big,
as in well endowed?
Well, he's definitely not as Jake and certainly Ilmari, because they talk about that, right? But I'm also like, I feel like we're kind of doing Caleb dirty a little bit.
I don't know. Caleb's got those piercings.
I would do Caleb dirty.
Oh, for sure.
I think he requires it.
I know, right?
I'm kind of into those piercings. You guys know I like a little bit of eyeliner and shit. I'm into it.
I'm not even kidding. I'm very intrigued by the piercings.
I am 150 at heart. And like such a prude, I guess. I wrote several times in my notes, I guess I'm just a prude.
So I just read a book called Marrow by Bryn Weaver and Trish Wolf, who we met at Less Than the Low Country.
Yeah.
And there's a very unexpected character that has them, and we had already read this part of the book.
Has
and I was
piercings?
like, he has a Jacob's ladder, and I was like, yes.
Look, Darren would 100% not be on board with that, right? Like, he's like, don't fucking touch my dick. Like, you know what I mean? Like, with a piercing.
Does he say that to you, Mindy?
Don't fucking touch my dick.
He does not say that to me. But as far as, like, I mean, he does not want some bearded guy piercing his dick. Like, right?
What about a big-breasted woman?
He'd think about it.
He'd give that one a pause, probably.
Darren, if you said, this is important to me,
he would totally do it.
He would do it.
Yeah.
He would. I know he would. He looks all sweet and innocent, but he was in the Navy.
He's a simp for you, Mindy.
He definitely is a simp for me.
He's a hashtag Mindy simp.
Oh, I would love if we could have hashtag Mindy simp be like trending.
I'm
a
Mindy simp.
That's going to go viral.
I would love that so much.
I've been a Mindy simp for like 15 years.
Did I completely cut you off on your
explanation?
No,
okay. I mean, that's basically it. I just really, really like that. I was intrigued by the whole dynamic and the logistics of it all. Like, it definitely made me pause and be like, okay,
the physics of it.
Like, I needed to I need a diagram, right?
I do wonder.
I said that when I was reading it with you guys.
So one of our questions for Emily should be, how did she find out the logistics of that scene?
No kidding. I don't know. It just, and all that sexual
just
tension.
your imagination.
There's all that sexual tension between Jake and Caleb that just
Yeah. I mean, I've said it before. I love a little MM.
Me too.
Yeah.
Maybe not so little.
It's not little. I like a little pierced MM. How's that?
Well,
what was yours, Whit? Come on.
mean,
tell us about your non-dick piercing favorite spicy part.
I mean,
she's like, I like it when they kissed.
Pretty much. Yes. I mean, I liked all the stuff with Ilmari. He's just my favorite. But that's because I'm just, really monogamous and really,
there's nothing wrong with that either.
Yeah, that's what I like.
I mean, I hate that you feel like you're embarrassed about that.
I mean, I'm not embarrassed by it. But I don't want to be like, I didn't like that. You know what I mean? So,
hey, we all have the things we like.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah. I will say, too, and this was part of the reason why I was asking earlier if I had missed something in the prequel novella. I did feel like, and it might just be me and my like own personal discomfort, but I kind of felt like, I mean, Jake kind of gave him a blowjob kind of out of nowhere. For me personally, him and Caleb, and that's why I'm like, I feel like I was missing something. You know what I mean?
Here's why I feel like I wasn't missing something. I feel like Jake will do anything that Rachel likes.
Exactly,
and he knew she would like it.
And I think he lets his inhibitions down in front of her way more than if she wasn't there.
For her and not for Caleb.
Yes.
Okay, that makes more sense.
It was for me too, but
no, I hadn't thought about it like that. That makes sense.
Even at that point, Jake just didn't realize how close he was. I mean, even later on, and it may be in the third section up, I feel bad. Like, I feel like I shouldn't have read ahead, but I had already read ahead anyways. But he mentioned something like he's not attracted to him physically he's attracted to him as a person, even though he's like, yeah, he's totally hot, but like, I'm not attracted to him that way. I'm attracted to him as the whole person.
Right. It's not about his body.
So so like, still, even in that moment before he even realized it, I think he was like, oh, okay. I don't know. But truthfully, I think most of it is
about Rachel.
Rachel releases, like, she lets down his inhibitions for him.
Which, again, basically. I say I would have to be the Rachel in the group dynamic, right? Like, everybody worships the ground I walk on, and whatever I want to do is what's going to happen.
You're the Rachel of this podcast. We all do what you say when you say it. We definitely
do.
Thank you, guys.
I'm on my knees begging you for show notes.
Service me.
I'm like, Whitney, you're so good at setting up those interviews. Good.
That's only true part of the time.
Good girl, Whitney.
Good girl.
Oh, thank you, guys. Anyway, who is your chapter MVP or section MVP?
I wonder if it's all the same for all of us.
I don't know.
Mine was Ilmari.
Mine too.
I did not pick Ilmari.
Okay,
I'm shocked.
I know.
You go first then, Whit.
Okay, so I picked Jake because he made me laugh a lot.
Yeah,
I
he's
picked
hysterical.
My chapter MVP and my favorite secondary character I chose because they made me laugh. And I had like an entire section of notes of stuff that Jake said that made me laugh out loud. That whole conversation when Rachel comes back home from Cincinnati and they're all talking about like Ilmari kind of joining the group or whatever. Jake said like 5 things that made me laugh out loud. And he said, talking about all their penises comparison, it's like comparing a delicious bratwurst to a 2-pound salami. That made me laugh out loud.
I like how Jake has a huge dick and he's like, but Ilmari's bigger.
Right. Yeah. Like he knows his place. Right. Yeah. But he says, Ilmari's like, what would this look like if I join your group or whatever? Like, what does that look like? And Jake says, well, for starters, you got to let me sleep with my thumb in your ass. and you know about Naked Thursdays, right? Like that made me laugh so hard. That just made me laugh a lot. And then later at the end of this section, Ilmari is talking about like their future and, you know, we don't want to build our future on shifting sands. Like he has this big, like meaningful speech. Yes. And Jake says, dude, you're the wise old owl from a cartoon movie. He made me laugh a lot. He was really funny.
He's hilarious.
I enjoyed that whole last section, the last few chapters, all these like zingers and one-liners. I was like, this is great.
He definitely comes into his own, like, in some of these chapters where he's like, you're like, okay, that's who he is. That's what he brings to the table here. He's definitely comedic relief.
He was hilarious. Yeah. I enjoyed that a lot.
I definitely really started to connect more with the characters in the second part of this book.
For sure. Yeah.
The first part, I mean, it was fine, but I was like, okay, cool, they're doing it. Like, I like that. That's fine. But this time I'm feeling like more of an emotional connection.
For sure. Yeah. So, the first section is a lot more heat, and this section was more development. I felt for me. Yeah.
I think that's why it was really hard for me to pick an MVP, but I ultimately went with Ilmari. I think he and Jake stand the most to lose with the arrangement. So there's that aspect that he's risking his carefully structured life to be with Rachel because he can't not be with her, right? So I also love his quiet strength and his willingness to sacrifice things he never thought he would just for her. Honestly, in these chapters, I'm still not so sure that Rachel kind of deserves Ilmari, to be honest with you. On my first read, Ilmari was my least favorite of the guys, but on this reread, he's definitely inching up the ladder.
Yeah. I love him.
It's funny that you say that because I didn't really care for him in the first third of the book, but he's really grown on me. You know, he stands up for what he believes in with Dr. Hala. He really does respect Rachel. And even though he's kind of having like this sexual awakening when it comes to the polyamorous relationship, bless you all, he's a book nerd.
Yes.
He is
I know, that's super hot.
Finnish tattooed hockey player book nerd.
Yep.
With a monster cock.
Praise the goddess, Emily Rath.
I know that first section last week where he was like, I'm not sitting with you guys because I need to finish my book. I was like,
I
yes.
see you, Ilmari.
Yes.
I see you and I get you.
You are my people.
Yes, definitely.
What about your favorite secondary character?
Mine was Tess.
Mine too.
Mine too.
So
right.
mine was really because of this quote. I don't know if I would enjoy being made into a human Twinkie. I don't care how good the books make it seem. When I'm with a man, I want to give him all my attention. You better believe that what I want is his attention on me. And it got me really excited to read her book next.
Yes.
She and Langley are the couple.
Yeah, I can't wait. Like, I really want to read
so
about
good.
her.
I liked her a lot. When they were on the beach, I liked all the little, like, the way that Rachel watches Langley and Tess, and she's like, oh my gosh, Langley, just stop it. Like, you cannot handle all that.
Like, she is going to chew you up and spit you
Yes,
out.
I love that. But somebody, I can't remember who, but somebody asks Rachel if she wants a hot dog, and Tess is like, she wants 2 hot dogs. Like, she's making all these jokes about the whole situation. She made me laugh a lot, just like Jake, right? But yeah, I enjoyed her a lot.
That's exactly what I said. I said she just cracks me up, and I love how she has all the boys eating out of the palm of her hand. She has zero filter with anyone, especially Rachel, and she calls Rachel out on her shit, which not many people do, right? And Rachel, as I'm learning in my second reread, is kind of an asshole sometimes. Like, she's a little self-centered, and she, and it's all fine in the end, but I love that she kind of calls her out on that. And like you said, the next book, Pucking Wild, it's Tessa's story, and it's so good.
I'm excited to read that. I like this a lot.
I think you'll be less uncomfortable.
Is it a monogamous relationship?
It is a monogamous relationship, but it gets freaky. I will say that.
A little bit freaky.
No tentacles are involved.
Then I'm on board. It's really the tentacle that pushes it over the edge for Whitney. What about a favorite quote? I already said my favorite quote. It was the wise old owl. Dude, you're the wise old owl from a cartoon movie.
So I'm going to pull a Mindy. I have 2.
I do too.
My first one is, how's a guy supposed to compete with the surfing, sun-kissed Edward Cullen? Whitney, I can't believe that wasn't your favorite quote.
That was pretty good.
I'm telling you, Miss Emily Rath she's like the queen of zingers.
Funny.
Yeah, she's hilarious.
Funny.
So my second one is, it's the best my dick drunk brain could manage.
Was that Jake?
No, it's what Rachel said.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
But like, I'm laying in bed, it's like 1 a.m, and my husband's sleeping, and I'm trying not to bust out laughing because I'm like, oh, I've been there, babe. Yeah. Nothing makes sense. You don't know what's going on around you.
I don't even care. Whatever.
Just do what you want to do.
What was yours,
man.
Mindy?
So, like I said, I have 2 as well. And they're actually both Rachel, which is funny. I love the things Rachel says to herself, like when she's thinking about the boys. And one of my favorites is, well, sweet heavens, now I'm thinking about Mars Kinnunen dominating things. Rein it in, psycho. And then this is probably one of my all-time favorites in the whole book, when she says, I was about to have a very fortifying meal. A 6'3" professional hockey player was on the menu, hopefully with a side of equipment manager.
I mean, I wouldn't mind eating that. Girl dinner.
Oh, man. What about what you guys are looking forward to for this final section of the book coming up next week?
I really want to see Caleb confess his feelings for Jake. I don't know if that happens in this book or not, but I'm really looking forward to it. And
like an actual honest conversation.
Right. Yeah. And then I really want to know what the team's going to say when they find out about this quadruple.
Right. What is the right term?
Polyamorous relationship.
The non-hierarchical polyamorous.
Hierarchical.
I still cannot say that word, especially after 2 drinks.
These are my lovers. That's what I would say. Just simplify that a little bit.
This is my amorous.
These are my amories.
What's yours, Whit? What are you looking forward to?
Well, I was looking forward to, after finishing this section, I really honestly was looking forward to just reading the rest of the book and looking at it as an entire story, right? Because this section was a lot for, little old me. Goodness,
it doesn't get any better.
Right? But I went ahead and read the rest of the book because I wanted to be able to think about all of it, especially this section, in terms of the whole story.
That makes sense.
And not just this section by itself, right? Yeah. And I will say that after reading the whole thing, I do feel like I understand what's going on way better by the time I get to the end of the book, and I understand what Emily Rath is doing, right? Like I understand what her purpose is with all of these different choices. So that's really getting through the rest of it and being able to look at it as a whole overarching story and not just like, well, you know, that was just a lot for me. You know what I mean? Because I appreciate it a lot more being able to look at it as a whole. Like
when you realize that she doesn't want to just bang everybody in sight, like
Right.
that they each
Right.
fulfill a part of her that needs fulfillment. When I look at it that way and when I see it as the overarching like theme of it,
Right.
it makes so much more sense to me.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about that more.
Yeah.
I mean, not that Rachel wants to bang everybody. Talk
We can
about
talk about that too.
We can talk about that too.
to talk about it as an overarching story, right? Like
Yeah.
to get to the end of the book next week and be able to talk about it as a whole. I'm excited.
I mean, I'm looking forward to the 4-way action.
I'm
You're like,
into
I'm a
that.
simple lady.
I just want to see
I
them
don't
all
know. It
in
sounds
one
kind
room.
of complex to me.
I know, right?
So I have a
Oh,
couple
that's so
questions I need resolved, though.
Oh,
Okay.
yes, please.
So, and I know we're not going to write this on the page because it's not sexy, but how does Rachel not get yeast infections or UTIs? The whole thing talks about how, like, well, then we just fell asleep in each other's arms. And I'm like, you got a urinary tract
Yeah.
infection, honey.
That is one thing.
Go
What
take
is
a
it?
shower,
In one
bitch.
of the Bonds That Tie books.
Oh, yeah.
North is like, go pee. And I'm like, I appreciate this, this detail here.
North Draven always taking care of
Yes.
Ollie.
I know.
Yes.
right?
Every time.
I imagine Ilmari doing that in this
She's
dynamic.
like, but I'm tired. And he's like, go piss. I'm not taking you to the doctor tomorrow. So the other one is when is someone going to get jealous and lose their shit?
I know.
I find it unbelievable that no one's like had a moment yet.
Because
Right.
it's
yeah, I'm sure it's probably coming. And you both are looking at me like it's going to come.
I mean, that's
So.
just the reality of
Yeah.
human nature, right?
Right.
But
Yeah.
yeah,
And
no,
polyamory.
I've
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. One thing, this isn't really the same type of question, but just one thing that I thought was interesting is that we don't see on the page, we don't see Caleb and Jake and Rachel really having that in-depth conversation about like, okay, here's the deal with Ilmari.
they
Here's
don't
how we're
discuss
going to
their contract.
Yes, like here's how we're going to deal with this. Here's how we're going to present this situation to him. Like they say that, okay, we talked about it and we're all on the same page, but we don't actually get to see that
I
conversation.
think they're all too scared to have a big conversation because they're worried about rejection.
But it says that they did, that the three of them talked about it, and then Ilmari comes over and talks about it with that. And I just thought that was an interesting choice
Well, but
to
I
not show
also
us, you know.
think in realistic terms too, because they also talk about how Jake and Caleb talk about things, but without Rachel.
Yeah.
like they talk about
Off
them
the
our own-
page.
yeah,
Yeah.
without Rachel. And I think it's sort of because this is all new to all of them.
Yeah, that's
it's not
true.
like she's like, oh, I know all about polyamory. Like they're
Right.
all sort of
Trying to figure it out.
trying to figure it out and go with.
my
we just
sexual
got
butler
French
just walked in with French fries.
Thank you, good sir.
You're a scholar and
A gentleman.
gentleman. Thank you.
Sorry, go ahead, Min.
But yeah, I think that's part of it is that they're sort of still discovering it, and so they're gonna fuck it up, right?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Me and Mindy were discussing via text today these two books that we're reading with too much fucking dialogue. So I don't mind a little off the page discussion.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
cool with it.
Yeah.
But that's a pretty big discussion to have off the page.
Yeah. I just thought it was an
Yeah, I
interesting
agree.
writing choice, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
Are there any other tidbits or anything?
Well, I have a question. I just need to know how she has like 5 orgasms at a time because I'm super sore after one. Just saying.
I
Mindy,
love how
let's-
much you share about yourself.
You've had multiple orgasms,
Like I don't
right?
have anything to. I have,
Okay.
but not 5.
Yeah, I don't think I've had 5.
What is it on Friends, the night of 9 times or something that Ross talks
I think
about?
that's just the number of times they did it. That doesn't mean Carol got off every time.
Well, he did, though, probably.
yeah, but for guys,
Well, yeah,
it's
that's
different.
true. Forget about them. Screw them.
Forget about it.
I love how Jake brags about how he did it 6 times with her on their first night.
As he should.
You should.
And she's like, I fell asleep. What are you talking about?
And Amari's like, I can go all night long. There is a little bit of trivia in this section. So the ugly horse painting that Jake is staring at in the museum scene
yeah.
is actually kind of an Easter egg. So the painter is George Corbin. And George Corbin is a character in Emily Rath's Regency series.
I
Yeah.
really want to read that, and I was going to buy those books from her at Less Than the Low Country, but she had accidentally
Not brought them.
Not brought them. No.
Oh,
Yeah, I want to read that too. That's the one thing I haven't read by her. So we'll link in the show notes the picture of the ugly horse painting that Emily had in her mind, and then there's another one that's even funnier that a fan posted that they thought that what they pictured. So
oh, that's funny. I love that.
but I love little Easter eggs like that.
Yeah, I like when authors do that too. So, what about everybody's nerdiest thing of the week? Should I go first?
Yeah.
So I started rereading the Throne of Glass series.
I thought you were going to say the bonds that tie.
No.
And I was like, okay, Whitney.
But I probably will.
Last week when we were recording, we were talking about it. I put the first 3 books on hold at the library
Did you?
for audio.
Love
Yeah.
it.
I listened to the one on audio too.
It's so good.
Yeah.
Well, I've been telling you guys one of the teachers for my kids' school has been messaging me on reading all this. She did this with Iron Flame, and she started reading Throne of Glass, and she was like, I needed a break with the Throne of Glass. I started reading the Bonds of Time. And I was like, I've turned another one. But yeah, I
Does
probably
she
will
want to
reread
come
them
to
soon.
dinner?
Right.
Girl dinner.
After she read the first, or she listened to the first book, and then she was like, I don't really know how I feel about any of these people. And I was like, I think
Keep reading.
Yeah, I was like, I think that's pretty par for the course. But then also I went Black Friday shopping with my husband, my sister, and my brother-in-law. And there's this store at the mall here in Louisville called Buy Socks You All. Have you guys been here? Okay.
No.
So it's this really fun store that they have, I mean, a bunch of socks, but they like design their own stuff. And they had Taylor Swift Christmas ornaments, earrings, mugs, and socks and tea towels. So I ended up buying a Taylor Swift mug that has like the art basically from her Midnight's album. They had the most hilarious stuff. They had Andy Bashir, the governor of Kentucky.
Nice.
They had socks with his face on it and like earrings, and they were
cute.
It was really cute, a cute little store. So definitely go check them out. But yeah, the Taylor Swift mug, I was like, well, I have to buy this. Robbie was like, do you?
I'll have to check that out because we have crazy sock day at school all the time.
They have a ton of stuff.
Like literally today we had it, and so I wore my socks that have my cat's face on it.
See, my sister is a dentist, and so she wears scrubs to work, and she has like a million pairs of insane socks. Like that's
how you express yourself,
right?
Yeah.
That's the only fun part of her work outfit, basically. So she bought. I mean, I don't know how much money she spent at that store, but she bought a lot of socks. But anyway, it was a really cute little store, and I like my mug.
I'll have to check that out.
Yeah.
Well, I have 2 that have to do with our Instagram feed. If you're not following us, it's Our Nerdiest Thing on Instagram. We're hilarious. We post book reviews and author interviews.
We are hilarious.
And tons of fun reels and all of that. But my husband came home from a work trip, and we always buy each other little tchotchke gifts while we're gone. And he bought me these purple octopus tentacle socks.
They're really cute.
So,
not knowing what we're discussing.
because we've not edited these episodes yet. And so I posted them and tagged Emily, and it was pretty much like, if you know, you know. And then Emily, reposted it, which I thought was really, really sweet of her. And then I also did a Thanksgiving post of things that would get you to leave the Thanksgiving dinner.
Like best post ever.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And one of them was if, one of these 4 books was released early, and it was the next From Blood and Ash book. It was the next Sarah J. Maas book. It was Chaos, Gods of Chaos by Scarlett St. Clair. And then the final one was Destroy the Day by Bridget Kimmer. And then she replied to us today, and she's like, it's coming soon, I promise. So I just want authors to know how much we appreciate that. And,
yes, definitely.
we're supporting you, but you're also supporting us. Like, we take what we do really seriously in supporting you. And so I wanted to say thanks to Emily and Bridget for doing that.
Yeah,
I love that.
We fangirl all the time.
Yes, we do.
Yes, we do.
And we notice
Every
every
single
single
day.
Yes.
I notice every like, every comment, every unlike of our page.
I was going to say, we also notice when you don't respond at all. Just saying.
Mindy, what was your nerdiest thing?
So mine, by the time this comes out, it's going to be past the holiday season. But this week I was so excited because I got in the mail. I ordered a sticker advent calendar from one of my favorite websites, which is probably Smut, which I've talked about before. And they just have funny stickers. I'm like, I don't know what my deal is. I'm channeling my inner 80s child, and I'm like super stoked about stickers right now. I don't know what the fuck I'm going to do with them, but
stickers are having a moment.
They are. And I've got a nice little collection. And so I'm really excited to start this. It's not December yet as of this recording. So I'm excited to start. They have hilarious stickers. They're all really funny.
Stuff,
they're,
yeah.
like they're all bookish related, but, funny and smutty things. So I'm excited to see what kind of stickers I'm going to end up with on, from my probably smut sticker advent calendar.
That'll be fun.
Yeah.
You'll have to share.
I will.
Send us a text every day.
I will. Look at this one.
Well, that's it for this episode. Next week.
Yeah, we hardly talked at all.
I know. I can't even believe it. Next week, we will be joined by author Emily Rath to talk about the last section of Pucking Around. We're going to be...
Speaking of fangirling.
Yeah, speaking of freaking out. We'll be talking about chapters 73 through the epilogue, the end of the book. We'll see you then.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Like what you heard in this episode? Follow Our Nerdiest Thing on Instagram at instagram.com/Our Nerdiest Thing or Facebook at facebook.com/Our Nerdiest Thing. We love hearing from fellow nerds. Email us at ournerdiestthing@gmail.com.